Okay, so I'm jumping into my DAW now, and over here I can explain 4/4 and talk about the differences between beats and measures. So what we got over here is a tempo of 60. That means there's 60 beats within a minute. Now I'm going to go over here, and as you can see, you've got your bars, bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, bar 4, and so on. And I've chosen a quantization, which means how the bars are broken up to quarter notes. So what you can see is you can see 4 equal measures within your bar, which means you've got 4 quarter notes within bar. So that's how we explain our 4/4. So within that bar, there's 4 measures of quarter notes, and that gives you your 4/4. So I just want to quickly create an instrument because we can demonstrate and explain this a bit better. So I'm going to go to the browser. I'm going to add in an instance of a drum instrument because drums are a great way of explaining rhythm. So what we're talking about is first the sort of pace and rhythm. That's going to give us an idea on the time signature. And then through the time signature, we're going to get a feel for how something feels within a specific time signature. So that's really important. That's what I want to go for, is showing you how you can use a time signature change to change the feel of a song. So I'm just going to load up a kit over here. Let's just go for, so we're just going for some kick and snare and maybe some hats. Then I'm just going to draw in a part or region on this track. Just make it a bit bigger. And now when we open this up in the editor, what you're going to see is your bar. So bar 1 to bar 2. And within your bar, you've got your quarter notes that are divided up into 4 parts here, as you can see over here. If I change this up to eighth notes, you've got 8 divisions within the bar. But for now, let's just talk about quarter notes. And I just want to go to C1, which is my kick. And I'm just going to draw in 4 quarter note kicks. So now if I play back, as you can hear, you've got 4 quarter notes. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be the way that we count out our time signatures. We're counting out the quarter notes for this within the bar. I could take the second bit here, which is the off beats, and make it a snare. So what we got is kicks on 1 and 3 and snares on 2 and 4. Now, if I go to quantize and change it to eighth notes, you can see the subdivisions change over here, and that's the hi-hats. Just going to draw this in. So what we're hearing now is the kick and snare on the quarter notes and the hats on the eighth notes. For example, if I just take these and mute them, you're hearing the eighth notes there. So it's really common to talk about quarter notes and eighth notes when it comes to time signatures. And we're going to be using those predominantly to talk about different types of time signatures, like 3/4. That means there's 3 beats that are 3 quarter notes within a measure. So you've actually got a shortened 4/4, or you've got a 5/4, which is an extended 4/4. And you've got 7/8 and things like that when you get into eighth notes or 6/8. So we will explore those. But basically what I want to show you is, for example, if you've got a 3/4, it feels like it's not resolving that 4/4. So you sort of anticipate the 4/4 coming, but it comes a bit sooner. But then we get into a 5/4, there's that extra quarter notes after it finishes the bar, so it feels like it goes on for longer. So you've got this sort of push and pull that's happening with time signatures when you incorporate them into your productions. So that's really what I want to get to with this series, is showing you how you can use this to sort of change the feel of your song and create some push and pull with the playthrough of the song, and when you're listening to it, to create some extra interest. So now that you know the basics with regards to a 4/4 and quarter notes and maybe even eighth notes, now let's start jumping in and exploring how these work within an instrumentation. So we're using some instrumentation to show you how it works. Okay, so we all know what a 4/4 is now. So with the 4/4, we've got 4 quarter notes within a bar. Now, what I want to talk about now is rhythm, chords, and chord progression, and how all of this can have a sort of impact factor on our meter, especially when you start going into different time signatures and start changing either the rhythm or changing the chord structure or changing both to fit within that new time signature. So first off, I've got this very simple drum groove over here. Let me play it back for you. So what we got here is a very simple pattern with a kick and a snare. We've got our hats on the eighth notes over here, and then we've just got a slight bit of a fill at the end here. Now, what I've got over here is a bass part. And it's just playing a very simple pattern going from a G to a B flat, to an F, and then to a C. So what we've got here is 2 bars and a 4-part chord progression that we're going to be getting to that plays 4 notes over 2 bars. Now, this is where we start talking about the chord structure and the rhythm. So this works fine, but let's say I actually shortened this section. So for example, I had this where I'm playing those 4 notes over 1 bar. It's going to completely change the feel, even though it's still a 4/4. So I'm just going to duplicate that over here. And now take a listen. As opposed to this. So even though it's a sort of same chord progression, it's playing half the time over a 4/4. Now this is really going to come into play, like I said, when we get into our different time signatures. But I just want to show you that you can actually play with the chord patterns over the same groove. So taking that into account, I actually want to go back into my mixer and I've got a piano part here that is playing the chord progression. Now this is the chord progression that I'm going to use through the following videos, but we're also going to be exploring other types of chord progressions, different styles, and how you can incorporate all these things. So I'm going to unsolder that, and now I'm going to play this back. So this is playing that same 4 chord part, but now it's been expanded into a chord progression with some triads. So if we just take a look at this chord progression over here, what we got is we've got our G minor here going into a B flat, then into an inversion of an F major, and then another inversion of your C major. And it sounds like this. So a very, very simple chord progression. That is our 4/4. Now let's start exploring some other types of time signatures. And the first one that I want to look at is your 3/4. So if we just break this down, I'm just going to actually just cut this over here and cut this over here. So this is 1 bar of 4/4 and then another bar of 4/4. Now let's say if we wanted to make a 3/4, I'm going to actually just take this first chord progression over here, copy it over here. We've got our 4 beats. And all we really need to do is cut out that last one over here. So I'm just going to take that out. So what we got here is a bar of 4/4, another bar of 4/4, and then a bar of 3/4 here. So if we just play this back, you're going to get an idea of where we're heading with different types of time signatures. So take a listen. And we're going to 3/4. So as you can hear, it sounds unresolved. It's not resolving back here to the root. And that's where you can take your time signatures and start changing the chord progression so that it fits within your 3/4 and resolves back into the 4/4. Let's go more into a 3/4 and I'll show you how you can take a chord progression like this and resolve it so it feels a bit more smooth and a bit more natural. You saw how you could take apart, for example, this end bit over here, and just chop off that end bit there. So instead of it having 4 beats in the end, we've got 3 beats. So it would be something like this. So these 2 bars over here are 4/4, and then this is a 3/4. So you can feel how that doesn't naturally resolve back quite nicely. So what I want to show you is how we can take a look at the groove, change that up, as well as the chord progression so it makes more sense. So let's just listen to this groove over here. And then over here on the section. So it feels like that kick is not quite working with that snare. So I'm going to go in here. So with this part, what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to copy this again. And if you see you've got your kick and snare here, I just want to move that back slightly so that we've got a cleaner pattern that's happening. So it sounds like this now. Yeah, that's working quite nice. I'm just going to duplicate that over here. And now when we listen to this part with the chords, let's actually just take a listen with the bass. So it's just playing 2 notes there. But what I wanted to do is within this part, I wanted to play those same 4 notes that are on the chord progression. So instead it'll be something like this. So instead it'll be something like this. Yeah, that's working quite nicely. So I'm just going to go out of this, copy this bass here, and with the drums and the bass, it'll now be like this. Coming back again. As you can hear, that resolves much better. And we're using something that's very familiar within the 4/4 in the 3/4, which is that chord progression. So if you look here, you've got these 4 notes that are the root notes of the chord progression. And I've got those same 4 notes over here in the 3/4, but it's just fitting within that 3/4 better than if you just had to copy them across. So now what I want to do is basically go to the piano over here and do the same thing. So I'm just going to take this piano part away. These 2 parts are actually what I want to do. So I'm just going to merge those together, move them here, and just sort of match them up with what we've got with the bass over here. So if we take a look, I just want to move this up. We need to take these, move them over here. So I can take these and just neaten this up. So we've now got this. And now within the context of the 4/4 and the 3/4, it sounds like this. Now that resolves much better. So we've got 2 4/4 parts over here going into 2 3/4s and using a very similar note progression that resolves back when it comes back to the 4/4. Now, as you might have noticed, I'm actually working with a grid that's set to 4/4, and you can actually go into your DAW and change this so you've got visual sort of cues when the time signatures change. On my side here in Studio One, I can click here and go down to signature, and I can click a plus sign here to add a time signature. So just check how you do it in your respective DAW. But now when I click over here, I'm going to get my 4/4 there. I could add another 4/4 here if I wanted to, just so I know what's going on. So it's a 4/4, another 4/4. Then here it's going to hit into a 3/4. Another 3/4 here. But back into the 4/4 when it loops back again. So if we've got our quantized set at quarter notes, you can see you've got 4 beats within here, 4 beats within here, here 3, and another 3 over there. So these are just visual cues so you know where the time signal changes are. Now let me expand this instrumentation so you can hear what this sounds like when we get into a bigger production. So over here, I've just added in some extra instruments. I've added in some guitars and some synths and some pads. You can see the time signatures over here. I've got a 4/4 going into a 3/4, into a 4/4 again, and a 3/4. And it sounds like this. So now you're going to get an idea on how you take the initial idea of the groove and the chord changes and expand that into other instrumentation. So as you can hear, it sounds quite nice and smooth. It doesn't feel very drastic as you move from one time signature to the next. That's what we're really going for. You don't want something to feel jarring. You want it to feel very smooth, but at the same time having that interest with that different type of time signature jump so it jumps out to the listener. Now just going back to the section over here, here we've got a 4/4 going into a 3/4, but you don't necessarily have to have that. You could just, for example, have a song with 3/4s in. So you just got 3/4 going the whole way with the song. So that forms the main idea. So you don't have to start in 4/4 and then make changes to 3/4. You can just stick in one time signature, but it doesn't have to stick to 4/4. So over here, you'd have a song that you'd have in 3/4, and you'd write the whole rest of the song in 3/4.